And I was the new leader for the organization, and I was suddenly thrust into this position of having to figure out, what are we going to do now? And I remember thinking to myself, I do not have the skills to deal with this. This is way over my head. But at the same time, I began to kind of dig deep and realize, well, I may not have been through this before, but I think there are some things that we can do together to figure it out. And as you mentioned, one of my favorite quotes is chaos is the catalyst for your next opportunity. If we're reacting in fear, we don't see it as an opportunity. We see it as something to avoid. But if we start to reprogram our brains to say, okay, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable, but is there an opportunity here? Then we're beginning to lead through it instead of reacting to it.
Many people want to be leaders. Fewer understand what it really means to lead people well. So what separates the two? Welcome to the Lead with Purpose podcast with your host, Merv Jersak. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with leaders who have been in the trenches and have stories to tell. They'll share their practical wisdom to help cut through the noise and get to the heart of leadership. So let's get started.
Hey, I've been listening to my audience of leaders who are looking to improve their leadership skills, and one thing that I consistently hear is their need to keep up. Innovation, competition, uncertainty. Remember the COVID challenges of a few years ago? Or are you worried about the fast pace of AI changes that are happening even now? Disruption is everywhere, and some of you may be feeling overwhelmed by all of it, but I know that there are others out there listening to me right now that are using it as a catalyst for your own leadership growth. My guest today is a leadership expert, Stephen Iwersen. We've known each other for some time now, and he joins me to share how emerging leaders can navigate this chaos, can overcome resistance to change, most importantly, to turn disruption into a great opportunity. So welcome, Stephen.
Well, hello, Merv. Thanks for having me with you.
It's been a while since you and I connected. It's probably pre-COVID, right?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah. Well, can you set the stage for us in the next 2-3 minutes? And kind of let us in on your own growth in this area, in the leadership arena, and perhaps even how you came to focus in on this whole disruption process in your teaching and your training?
I can do that. I started way too many decades ago in leadership, and some of my very first assignments, I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, realize it now. Those assignments were chaotic from the very first day. Each one had gone through some sort of turmoil, a team or an organization that had good success, and then for whatever reason, it might have been personalities, it could have been just the dynamics of the demographics and the community. They hit a wall in some way. And my bosses always seemed to think I was the guy who was supposed to be able to come in and get things moving again. I wasn't sure I understood why, but that was usually the case. In fact, I even had one boss. He told me, he said, "Stephen, you're going to be assigned to this role here, and I just need you to know this is not going to be a long-term assignment. You're probably only going to last 2 years." Yeah. Okay. Well, I was young and I was hungry and looking for opportunity. And fortunately, I was there for 3 years, and we were able to get some things turned around. And that really has been kind of the course of my career. Every place I've gone, for the most part, has been at a transitional place. And my certain skill sets, my mindset and approach to things was really about helping people not identify what was the cause of the problem, as much as what is the potential for us to move beyond that. And sadly, in order to move beyond, you have to be able to say, okay, these were the reasons, so that we have a baseline to work from. But what I found in my career was helping people begin to revisit the why they were part of the organization in the first place, and let them rediscover the joy of that very purpose was usually the starting point for an openness to trying maybe some new methods. And so when I started my leadership business, doing training and speaking for organizations in regards to change, particularly and leading through change, I brought a lot of that experience with me. And during probably the first 10 years of my speaking and training business, even though we were trying to help leaders just get the basic leadership skills wrapped up, the one thing that kept occurring during our training days is people would ask, what about the conflict? How do
Uh,
I deal with those kinds of things? And so
yeah.
we would focus mostly on managing conflict, or as we like to call them, prickly people, because
Yeah.
most of the conflict in organizations kind of rooted into one or two people. But then chaos became the real subject because, as you just mentioned, even before COVID, there were disruptors that were affecting all kinds of organizations. Then COVID hit. And
Mhm.
then after COVID, we've had a number of different things. Some of it's been digital. AI is a disruptor. Tariffs has been a disruptor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many different things. And so I began to really focus in on what is it that leaders are doing successfully to help their groups get through whatever that disruption may be. And what are some of those things that we could identify that leaders are not doing that's causing it to kind of implode on them?
Oh, that's excellent. I have a new moniker for you, having heard that first part of your story.
Yes.
You're the chaos cowboy.
Oh, no.
You bring him in, he fixes it, and off he rides
And
into
then
the
off he
sunset.
rides. Yeah, I wish.
Well, you've mentioned that chaos. I've heard you say that chaos can actually become a catalyst for, let's say, for a leadership opportunity. But most people don't think naturally that way, do they? And and,
No,
and why do you think that is?
no. I think any disruption, even if it's a mild disruption, it causes people to feel a little discomfort because it's it's causing us to have to deal with something that we might not be able to control or to manage because we don't understand it.
Mhm.
Uh, Major disruptions, of course, create for most folks an immediate sense of fear, and the fear is usually driven by the unknown. uh, Maybe the fear of uh, I don't have the skills necessary to get to this point.
Yeah.
The fear of disappointing people. A whole list of things usually come into place, and sometimes just change creates a sense of fear. And I think that's the probably the initial emotional reaction to any kind of disruption. I remember a few years ago, well, it's been more than a few years ago now, but I was leading an organization, and I showed up at the offices one day and thought something was kind of odd about the building itself. Now, I'm not a structural engineer, but something didn't look right to me.
Mm.
And by end of day, we had literally had the city inspectors put a red sticker on the door and condemn the building because the roof, the rafters were cracking and the roof was literally caving in.
Wow.
And I was the new leader for the organization, and I was suddenly thrust into this position of having to figure out, what are we going to do now? And I remember thinking to myself, I do not have the skills to deal with this. This is way over my head. But at the same time, I began to kind of dig deep and realize, well, I may not have been through this before, but I think there are some things that we can do together to figure it out. And as you mentioned, one of my favorite quotes is chaos. Chaos is the catalyst for your next opportunity. If we're reacting in fear, we don't see it as an opportunity. We see it as something to
Oh,
avoid.
that
But if
makes
we
sense.
start to reprogram our brains to say, okay, I don't like this, this is uncomfortable, but is there an opportunity here? Then we're beginning to lead through it instead of reacting to it.
Gotcha. Hey, I did a little snooping on your website, Stephen.
Uh-oh.
And I came across something called the Chaos Code, and I was just curious about that. So, without giving away your trade secrets, perhaps, can you tell us a little bit about what the Chaos Code is, and perhaps how you came by it, and why you created it?
I'd be glad to. In fact, that's
Yeah.
my favorite subject.
Okay.
Uh,
Good.
during COVID, when disruption hit all of us, and I had to stop taking a flight to go work with people and started taking a flight of stairs to a new video studio we had to create. Um, it was during that time that a lot of my clients were asking, well, how do we manage this? How do we get through this? And so I started working with them and identified some of them were doing incredibly well. and some of them were failing miserably. And
Hmm.
during my interviews during COVID and then post-COVID, I've conducted over 150 interviews with different leaders and organizations to find out what is it that those who succeed, what are they doing? And through all of those interviews, I started to notice a pattern. And the pattern was simply 5 things that I saw those who did well do consistently.
Ah,
And those who failed or were struggling still, they were missing a couple of the components that I saw in the others. And so I looked at all of those things and began to realize that much of what they were doing was similar to some things that I had been teaching before, but never noticed the pattern. And it was that led to the impetus of an idea of how to teach this, and that's when I came up with the term the chaos code.
hmm.
5 unique things that if you do them all together, um, will help you get through and probably outrun the competition.
Oh, very nice. So a lot of my leadership listening audience are up and coming leaders, and and some of them I think are going to listen to this because they feel that their organization is in total disarray, complete
Mm,
chaos,
mhm,
things with constant change, perhaps uncertainty. We mentioned AI earlier. Difficult people. I think you mentioned the prickly people earlier as well.
mhm.
But I it's sort of in reference to the chaos code and the things that you saw there. What would you want young emerging leaders to remember when everyone else is focused on the problem and they're targeted with fixing this or finding the solution?
Well, how you phrase that is really important.
Okay.
Most people will fixate on the problem.
Yes.
Um, it's and I don't wanna say ignore the problem, identify the problem, be clear about what that problem is. And I think that is a very key thing. You've got to be clear about what that problem is. Sometimes the problem isn't as big as what it's become because people have started to make assumptions. They've added other layers to what that problem is. And suddenly we're talking about all of these different elements that really are just side conversations, but the real issue is here.
Hmm.
And so getting clear about that is good. But instead of fixating on that, what I like to teach, and in fact, it's the first part of the chaos code, is um, clarity of purpose.
Okay.
The first thing that we should do as a leader is come into a team of individuals who are feeling all the emotion of whatever the change may be, and we need to remind them what our purpose is. And I think leaders who really target that conversation and speak well of it and are the champions of it, they will help those begin to see, okay, in the context of our purpose, this problem means what? And then
Hmm.
what do we do with this problem so that we're not um, straying from our purpose, but we're complementing and moving towards our purpose? And is there a catalyst here that's an opportunity so that we can actually achieve this more successfully?
Gotcha. And then I know some people, well, even from my own experience, you know that I came from that high driving project management IT world where, timelines and deadlines and all that kind of stuff was there. I had leaders that when things like this would happen, and IT, everything changes all the time, right?
Right.
But a lot of my leaders reacted emotionally instead of leading strategically. And I'm trying to think, what were some of the warning signs that I may have missed when I noticed that? And how could I help those leaders perhaps become more strategic than emotional in their reactions?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that being transparent
Mhm.
with individuals, and instead of shifting to what might be politically correct or um, worrying about the perception that you might be in the deep end with them and that
Yeah.
you've got all the answers, just being honest with people, say, you know what, this is uncomfortable for me too. This is not territory I've been through before.
Yeah.
Uh, but let's remember who we are, what got us where we are, and what we're supposed to be about. And let's sort through some of this stuff. Um, one of the things I like to tell people is, in fact, one of the training courses that we teach, we talk about implementing potential new ideas that come up. Well, before you can do that, you have to identify What's the problem? Is there a bottleneck here? Is there something that's creating this this resistance? And being clear about that, and then asking people. And here's the key part: is it's inviting them to come up with ideas. Instead of you being the constant idea person, you become the curator of differing ideas, but it starts with invitation. And people like to be invited, they don't like to be told.
Yes.
I'll say that again. They like to be invited, they don't like to be told. If you're telling people, then the perception is you're a micromanager. But if you're inviting people, the perception is here's a leader I can trust because they're open to. Now, not all ideas are going to be great. So you test them. You give them a run. You look at all the ideas that might be mentioned. You say, okay, of all these 5 that we've talked about, which one seems the most plausible for us that we could at least test run it? Let's just give it a whirl. And what kind of things do we need to see that are going to be evidence that we're on the right track?
Yeah.
And once you've had that conversation, spin it out there. And then come back and sit down together with them and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work? And if it didn't work, there's no shame in it. You move on to the next idea. But when you find something that is moving forward, then you give them permission to implement it. I think too many organizations have this, the polity or I think polity is probably the right term, where an idea has to be run up the flagpole to the higher up to get approvals. What I like to recommend to those that are in higher up, give your teams that are on the front lines trying to figure this out, give them permission to test things to see what's working, what's not. And then when they think they've got it, ask them to validate and to support it and to sell you on that. But if you already have an idea, you're going to tell them what it is, and they have no say in it, they might attempt it, but it's always going to be with reluctance.
Yeah.
And reluctance isn't a great way to get buy-in.
And maybe even resistance, right?
Yes, definitely.
You know what? You just reminded me, one of the greatest leaders I ever had the privilege of working for was exactly what you just described. But the thing that I appreciated about him most was that he could create calmness without pretending that everything was fine. And so as he created that calmness, he brought us in along with him, and we became co-problem solvers as opposed to reactionary people. So that I
Good.
appreciate what you just said. Why do you think we just talked about the resistance or the reaction or whatever? Why do you think people resist change, even when that change is obviously, or maybe not so obviously, beneficial? And I'm thinking even taking AI as an example, a lot of people are resisting the change that AI is bringing, even though we know it has many beneficial aspects to it.
I think the reason most people resist change is because they haven't understood the benefits. Given opportunity to understand it, to like I said a moment ago, give it a test and see how it floats. Most of us are so used to doing something well. In fact, we can do it so well, we don't really even have to give much thought to what we're doing. And we're successful at it. We get comfortable with it. And then when something new comes and it's a change that stretches me a little bit, I get resistant. I feel it. I feel the emotion of that because I'm not sure I can be successful.
Yeah.
But what I need to remember is what I'm doing incredibly well right now. There was a first time for me back when,
Right.
and it was a little uncomfortable then too. And helping people understand that there's an opportunity here. Let's find out what it's like. And if it works, great. If it's not, what do we need to adapt or adjust to make it? AI is something that I had to start working into my presentations and understanding because my clients were dealing with it. I personally didn't really want to have to deal with it. I figured I'm usually an early adopter on this one. I was thinking I'm going to let other people go down that path for a little bit and see if they get snagged, or if they succeed, then I'll follow. But because my clients had to deal with it, I had to start using it. I had to test it. I had to pull different apps up in different forms and really give it a whirl. And I discovered there's a lot of benefit here.
Yeah.
And the speed of which I can get some things done, I like that. Now, there are other things I feel I need. For me, I need guardrails. So I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that those are there before I move forward. But you'll never know that if you don't give it a test.
Yeah. But you're a discerning person. So even if it gives you information, you can kind of sense if it's kind of off, right? I mean, so there's ways to say, here's the benefits, but I'm also putting up my own guardrails
Yes.
to make sure that I don't get hoodwinked. And as you were explaining that, I was thinking that sometimes the resistance isn't from the change, but it's from how the change is perhaps explained or introduced to us.
Yes. Yes.
So many of my listeners are, again, early in their leadership careers or leadership assignments in the case of a volunteer organization.
Mhm.
Um, and so a lot of them haven't yet developed much of their authority. So how can they effectively lead through these disruptive changes if they don't have a lot of authority?
Two thoughts come to my mind. The first one, I think, is probably the most important, and that is developing a servant's heart.
Ah,
Um,
good.
if we if we function from a place of service instead of a place of transaction, people will begin to trust us.
Yeah.
But if they sense that we're just trying to climb the ladder, um, get the new position because we're hungry for something, if it's a transactional kind of thing, you don't gain the kind of respect
Mhm.
that you really need to have. In fact, the word service is a part of that chaos code. What I found, so many leaders who were doing incredibly well, leading their teams through major disruption, almost every single one of them, well, I should probably say every one of them, had demonstrated that they were there to serve and to help those on their team find a way through whatever that disruption may be. And uh, to me, I think that was the icing on the cake. It
Mm.
really helped to solidify that this is a leader that is trustworthy. And as a volunteer or someone who's brand new, just being available to find a way to be of help and making sure that you're literally following through so that there is a track record. People will begin. You don't have to have the title. People will begin to start looking to you because you've demonstrated that trustworthiness. And the higher the trust level, the more confidence people have in you. The lower the trust level, the less confidence they have. And it's got to be demonstrated in the actions, not necessarily the words.
Yeah, I remember running some fairly large IT teams, and I'd have team members on my teams that everybody seemed to always go to. They had no title, but everybody went to that person or those people. So yeah, I can
Mhm.
see exactly what it is that you're saying. Um, and another thought that hit me as you were explaining there is that you also, when you and I first met, this was back, I think, with National Speakers or one of those
Mhm.
areas. Um, you talked about relational leadership, and I'm wondering if perhaps that's also part of the whole service attitude.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, if people feel that you're coming from a place of real genuine concern, it's a relational thing and not a um, uh, not a corporate thing. Well, we've used the word title. It's not a positional thing. It's a
Oh, there you go.
relational thing. I think
Yeah.
that's what I want to convey. Um, you will begin to sense that folks really want to be a part of what you're trying to achieve, and they will include you. Years ago, there was a company in the Kansas City area where I lived at that time, and the 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 top two leaders of the organization had global responsibilities, a CEO and executive director, and they were all about their people. And I remember hearing them in their meetings with their hundreds and hundreds of staff members at their meetings. They would say, here's our priorities, our people, that's you,
Mm.
our, our, our clients, and then our processes. And so it's always in that order. And they conveyed it in so many ways, not just in words, but in the way that they structure things and they led their meetings and they equipped people. When both of those individuals retired and moved on, The global organization put 2 new people in who hadn't established the kind of trust that was necessary, and they inverted the whole thing, and it was our process,
Uh-huh.
and then our clients, and then our people. And within 6 months, there was an exodus of the best folks in their organization
Wow.
because
Yeah.
they didn't want to be a part of that kind of climate and culture.
Yeah.
And to me, that was a classic example of 2 leaders who understood service and relational leadership was going to be the key to their success as an organization, not just their success, but the whole group. And I think that would be a good thing for people to hang on to, especially as you're beginning in your leadership journey.
Yeah. You're speaking my language right now because you know that my company is called People First Project Management. So,
Yeah.
and one of my monikers is people over profits, people over process. So that
Mhm.
I appreciate exactly what that company was standing for. So, the other thing is, as I was lurking about your website, I came across something called champion performance. What exactly does that mean?
Champion performance for me is helping on the individuals and even myself understand that real championship performance is foundational on your core values. I call it your heart. A lot of people
Okay.
like to say, "Well, these are our core principles." Principles are good, and I believe one of my favorite sayings is, "You can't have real championship results if you don't champion your principles."
Sure.
Um, what I think a lot of organizations make a mistake in doing is they come up with a vision statement, a mission statement, and then they have these points of core values.
Hmm.
And they do usually a group of individuals takes a retreat and they go someplace and they come up with this wonderful statement of our direction. And a vision is good and a mission statement is good. Uh, but I can tell you this, individuals and most employees can't even quote to you the vision and mission statement. And if
Yeah.
they do, it's just a memorized phrase.
Yeah.
But when you start to champion your principles, your 3, 4, 5 core values that define who you are as an organization, those things become a part of your heartbeat as an organization. It becomes a part of your language, the behaviors. Those things become very important. And what I believe is people will remember stories
Hmm.
a lot longer than they will remember statements.
Sure.
So if as a team leader, I have a team and I want to make sure that they understand that one of our core values is service, for example. I will tell a story of someone that I observed demonstrating an act of service. I don't have to say, now remember our core values include.
Yeah.
All I have to do is talk about the observation of behaviors. And what's beginning to happen is our core values begin to shape the behaviors, and the behaviors become the heartbeat of who we are. It's really the influence of the culture. For so long, organizations wanted to create the right culture for a company, or right business culture, and we chased having bubble gum and ping pong tables and bean bags in the break room or whatever so that we had fun at work. Well, that might be fun, but it doesn't necessarily give you championship performance. If you want the right performance, make sure that people understand and feel and embrace the values. And that begins to really build the momentum you want.
Well, and then it's almost like it becomes artificial the way you describe that. And as a person in that organization, I feel like it's being imposed upon me. It's like, I don't need a ping pong table. I need
Right.
an extra 15 minutes at the end of the day to
Right.
decompress, right?
Yeah.
Well, well, our time is coming to a close here, and I would love to have you on at some point also to talk about some prickly behaviors that you've noticed. But I do like to end these with some by switching gears and doing a little rapid fire Q&A.
I heard you were going to do that. See
Well,
what
some of
happens.
them are some questions are really easy. Like, are you an early or a late riser?
Early riser.
Early riser. What's your favorite morning beverage?
Coffee.
Me too. Me too. Okay, here's a little tougher one. You have a calendar conflict, Stephen. It's your grandchild's birthday, or you just scored a lucrative keynote speech.
It's going to be the kid's birthday.
Oh boy, yes, I know see, I might even try to compromise and say, "Can we celebrate your birthday tomorrow?" But yeah.
Or maybe say, "Would you like to go with me?" And we'll
Oh,
make
there
a
you
trip out
go.
of it. I'm just not sure that their parents would permit it.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So now switching back to the topic at hand, what's one habit you think that every emerging leader should start today?
One habit. I think the habit of being a great listener,
Oh, yeah.
saying less and asking more is a good habit.
That's good. And what do you think is one oh, let's see, how shall I phrase this? What's one thing that disruption reveals about a leader's character?
What comes to my mind immediately is the ability to um, be faithful.
Mm,
If you are thinking about service and helping people work through, then the character trait of faithfulness begins to demonstrate in the relational way instead of shifting to another project we have to get through.
yeah. And then you become a leader as opposed to an emotional disruptor yourself, right?
That's right.
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me today from our conversation today is that disruption itself isn't necessarily the problem. Change is inevitable. And coming from the world of IT, that's what I've found is that change truly is inevitable.
Mhm.
And uncertainty is certainly inevitable.
That's true.
But the real question, I think, is how leaders respond when disruption occurs. So, in the interest of helping perhaps you help our listeners, where can organizations or individuals contact you if they want your help in preparing for and responding to their own chaos and disruption?
Well, you can reach me by email, Stephen at StephenIwersen.com. Or you can go to the website, StephenIwersen.com, and you can call me from there or use our contact page, and we'd be glad to follow up as quickly as we can, make that connection.
And is Iwersen Iwersen or
That's
ON?
correct. Yes.
EN?
Yeah. We pronounce it Iverson, but we use a W to mess everybody up.
Yeah.
That's why I'm an expert in disruption.
My cousin is Swianowski, but he uses a W as well. So
Yeah.
it's so yeah. Anyway, thank you, Stephen, today for helping us learn how to lead through disruption instead of kind of being defined by disruption and by the chaos that happens. And for those people who are listening to us today, remember this. Your team doesn't need you to have all the answers.
Mm.
They need a leader who has the courage to move forward, to have integrity in the way that you are able to stay grounded, and a vision, I think, to help others see the opportunity where perhaps your team members see only obstacles. So come back next time and continue to learn how to lead with purpose.
If today's conversation added value, make sure you subscribe. And if this episode resonated, please leave a quick review to help other leaders discover the show. And remember, leadership works best when you put people first. Let's lead with purpose, together.